Well, hello. How are you, Katie? Good?
I am really good. Thank you, Sally. How are you? Look at us in our new StreamYard world. Aren't we
I know.
awesome?
How cool is this?
No.
We've got like a banner at the top and we got a little live button at the bottom. It's so
I
cool. We
feel like I'm in
absolutely
like a whole new, I'm looking around and all the new stuff and everything. It's very cool in here, isn't it?
It is. It's like we've got our own little virtual studio going on. It's really, really cool. So, hey, thank you guys for tuning in. We are live everywhere. We have Jeevan in control of where we're live. So we've just been told we're live everywhere. So we don't know where that actually is. But hello and thank you for joining us wherever you are. We're on Agent Rainmaker groups. We're on Property Agent Circle pages. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter. We are literally what you might say in the house today. We are all over the place. And this is the first in our 8-part series that we are running on how to smash through the agency growth barriers. Because one of the things we've identified over the last few years is that there's so many different barriers that agents have to get through and sticking points. And the first one, the one we're talking about here today, is the getting going phase. And I think, Kate, that's one of the hardest phases. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And we've been speaking to more and more agents over the last sort of 12 months who are very brave pioneers, I think, in the world that we've been living in, who have started up new businesses during lockdown and during the pandemic, and who are, got fantastic starts to their business. But it is the hardest stage, isn't it? Because you're full of fear and kind of you're taking a real limb, and it's difficult. And I think people really need help and assistance at this stage to just push through, to know that they can do it. Because we've worked with so many people who've done it and have now got successful, thriving businesses. It's just getting over that initial hurdle.
I tend to describe it as it's a bit like, when the car, just like when your car broke down in the snow a few weeks ago, Kate, and we had to sort of get it moving. It's that push, that first push. When you get it rolling, you're okay, but that first push is the hardest bit. And I think that first 0 to 100 properties really is the biggest challenge. So that's what we're focusing on here today. And then over the next 4 weeks, twice a week, on a Wednesday at 4 o'clock and on a Friday at 4 o'clock, in all these multiple locations where you can see us here today, we're going to be taking you through stage 1, 0 to 100 properties, then stage 2, up to 200 properties, and we're going to be taking you through those different barriers, because there's so many different places where we get stuck. And what tends to happen is you get momentum going, you get that car going in the first place, and then you start thinking, how do I get past this? How do I get past 250 properties? How do I get past 500 properties? How do I get past 1,000 properties? How do I get past those stages? But we're here today to talk about that getting going phase. We also have a guest who's come to join us as well. We have Paul Kitten, who's going to be joining us shortly, who really has done a monumental effort and astounding results in getting his business off the ground, growing and flying, which is really what we're here to talk about. So we want to talk to you about how to get your business going. Now, when you first start, and I think it's quite interesting actually, and because I used to, I've helped over the years many people start their own business, including a franchise and all those different things. And one of the first things that people realize is a bit of a shock is that when you've worked for a letting agency, Kate, I know you've worked for many agencies all over the world. In fact, this is the lady of the world here, Kate. She's lived in Switzerland and Canada and all these wonderful places I can only dream about. But when you work in an agency, the phone just rings, the leads just come in, you don't have to do a lot, and business just comes through the door. But then when you start working for yourself, you get the sexy website and you get the email address and you get the name and you put all that stuff out there, and then
tumbleweeds.
Nothing. And it's like, well, what's all that about? You just feel that because you do the same as what your business that you work for does yourself, you think those leads are come in, and of course the challenge is it doesn't, and then reality sets in, and then what do I do now? Would you agree with this, Kate?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the part, I think, you can, what do they say? All the gear and no idea kind of thing. You get all set up, you're branded, your logo, you may have, some years of experience and all that kind of thing. But it's very difficult then to be responsible and be solely responsible for all the lead generation in your business. And this is quite often why people get stuck around the low levels, because they might have been landlords themselves, for example, or they might be managing a small portfolio for friends or family. But how do you get over that next bit? How do you push from being sort of a low-level manager of properties to people to pushing out to getting clients that you don't?
Absolutely. And I think one of the key things is start to build a database, do something to actually get those contacts and leads, because one of the things you need someone to ring. And the challenge is you started out, you've got this name, you've got this brand, you've got this website, but who do you ring? And if you're going to have to sit and wait for advertising to work, for one or two leads to come in the traditional sense, it's going to be really, really hard. And so one of the key things you can do if you're going to start out today as a letting agent, if I was going to do it again, if I was going to start a letting agency now, I think what I would do is actually focus on acquiring a portfolio. There's so many letting agents that get to 40, 50, 60 properties, and then they lose the will to live. They find it so hard. They can't grow past it. It's not what they thought it was, and they want out. And I think there's a great opportunity to acquire so that you can start off with 50 properties and a database in which to work on. Would you agree with that, Kate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no better or quicker way to sort of kickstart your business by injecting an initial portfolio of properties in. Absolutely. This is a way that we've worked with many agents who have gone, rocketed. I mean, we're looking at people who are on their 8th or 9th acquisition, some people. Crazy. But starting out, this is just a phenomenal way to obviously kickstart your portfolio and inject a load of properties in very, very quickly.
Now, I'm going to bring Paul Kearton into the table. Now, Paul's been working, in the letting agency sphere for a while. But when we met Paul, you'd only just started your letting agency, and you were in that wobbly phase of like, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I want to continue with this. And I remember you actually saying to me, Paul, this is the day I make a decision whether I quit or whether I carry on. I mean, does this sound true for you? Did you feel these emotions? Is this how you felt at the time?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I mean, things were going quite well to start with, but obviously I think we've talked on this before that, things happened, family stuff happened, and I dropped off the business. But, going back after that was really tough. And, I found myself looking through local newspapers at adverts and phoning up landlords and offering like free tenant finder services just to try and build that, So,
and that comes from that desperation of wanting someone to call, isn't it? So if you could look back now and do it again, what would you do differently? What would you start off with? Because you're very close to the ground, so to speak, as it's not that long ago for you when you started. What would you do differently now, knowing what you know now?
I would start looking at acquisitions. Basically, I would go in and try and buy some portfolios. This is something I'm actually in the process of doing now, looking at an acquisition. But it was such a tough ride getting here, and it is building that database is imperative. You've got to do.
What do you think perhaps holds people back from looking for acquisitions? Do you think they feel they haven't got the money? Do you feel that they're maybe a bit scared or a bit nervous or a bit fearful of making those calls? What do you think holds people back? Or is it just lack of knowledge? Which one is it?
I think it is lack of knowledge. Knowledge. You various ways of acquiring portfolios and other businesses. And it's just a complete lack of knowledge. You don't realise how easy these things can be.
Absolutely. So let's talk about building a database, because you just touched on that, and that's just something really, really close to my heart. And I see so many people actually start off with the wrong things when they're starting their business. They focus on the branding, they focus on the website, they focus on the logo and getting all that sort of stuff set up, but then they don't focus on actually building a database. Now, I think this is crazy, and let me just run this one by Paul. Say, for example, you started off by running some webinars, and you ran, say, 2 or 3 webinars, a few Facebook ads, through Facebook Lives. You started to get some momentum. You got 50, 100, 150, 200 people on some landlord webinars, which then dropped those landlords onto your database. Would that have made life a little bit easier for you at the beginning?
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. I had no idea about, things like landlord seminars and even like the content marketing. The content marketing side of things have been massive for myself. Facebook ads and just little bits of little snippets of what landlords want, really.
I think people get confused by that, don't they? Because they think putting stuff out where you're not necessarily just asking someone if they want to, you know, to go fully managed or for you to sell their property, they feel like that's not useful kind of thing. But we now live in a world, don't we, where you know, building that list and building your contents is so valuable. It's almost the most valuable asset that your business can have. So building that database is so important, like you quite rightly say, Paul, with useful, valuable, serving information going out to your customers. That's all people really want nowadays, isn't it?
I think, again, if I was starting, if acquisitions wasn't for me, or I couldn't find any, or that wasn't the thing, or I didn't have the knowledge how to do that, I think I definitely would spend a good 3 months building up a database. You know, whether that be, I'm going to ask you in a minute, Paul, about content marketing and stuff like that, because your content marketing, webinars, Facebook groups, whatever it was, I think just build up that audience, that menagerie of people to speak to and nurture and turn into clients is absolutely invaluable. And again, that's so much more valuable than your logo or your website or any of that stuff will ever be. I know you need these things, but the value is actually in the list. So talk to me about you, Paul. How have you done that? What have you been doing?
Well, I started off with just various Facebook groups, really. Took over some groups, joined as admin. The other admins had moved on. So now I've got, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 groups now that I'm admin of. And they're all about property rentals, you know, all based, you know, property rentals in Cornwall, and just various word changes, like keyword changes of those groups. I mean, each group has got 6,000-7,000 followers.
Wow.
So you think 20 odd groups, that's a lot of people. I mean, obviously they're doubled up throughout, but they've been great. And I've content marketing on there, just little snippets of legislation and this, that, and a few videos here. But yeah, it's all helped, you know, and that's helped to build our database. So
I think people say this a lot, don't they, about the groups and things like that, or as Sally says, websites or corporate Facebook pages, that kind of thing, because people will put stuff on there and then wonder why they're not really getting any engagement. But why would people be on there in the first place? So what Paul's talking about here are some great Facebook groups, which will be sort of almost like safe places for landlords in a certain area to congregate and talk about the market. And it's not a pitch fest and it's not selling stuff, but it's you know, useful information being talked about. And then when you do a webinar or a seminar, or you have some sort of information to give out, you can drop it into those groups and nurture them, can't you, Paul? So it's not, you're not selling as a company, you're in there as Paul, a property, you know, professional, right?
But it's also turning it around from you contacting them to them contacting you. And I know that you found this, that since doing that, people are reaching out to you, which is a huge turnaround for a new business.
Oh yeah, they are, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I've not actually done any landlord seminars yet, but these little snippets that we do, you know, it all creates that interest from landlords. And you know, there's so many landlords still now not keeping up with simple bits of information like the how to rent guide and stuff like that. I had one yesterday, and he's come over now, fully managed. But you know, it is just putting these little snippets out there and getting that interest, and you know, informing landlords of what they're supposed to know in the first place.
And that's exactly right. You don't have to be like a legislative genius. It's fairly basic stuff you're talking about, isn't it, really? Because if you did get too heavy hardcore with them, they probably wouldn't follow you anyway. So it's just talking about the basics, the essentials, the key things they need to know. And that's just as good as anything, isn't it?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I think I told you I overdid the rant method to start with. Really quickly, but you know, I've tweaked it and you know, put little snippets out there, so it's been great.
Now I know that Paul's I'm sure you won't mind me sharing this, but I know you've done some like 700% increase since we first started. You know, you've really grown. It's probably even more than that now, because I haven't spoken to you for a few months now, but you've had an amazing success. And I know one of the challenges for you was actually how to get everything done. And finding that, you know, you're on your own, and you've got the inquiries, and you've got the marketing, and you've got the lettings, and then you've got the management, and you've got the client accounting, and all these different things. What have you found works for you in helping you get stuff done? So I know you didn't really want to build a big, massive team. You wanted to do it differently. And I think it's interesting to share with the audience really how you've done that.
I do. You know, I want to keep it quite personal. You know, I'm not one for being a big owner of this huge company. You know, I just want to do what we do, basically. And a lot of that was, you know, being able to do that was outsourcing some of our work. So, you know, just simple things like inventories. I hate doing inventories. So, you know, that first thing I outsourced, and now it's a breeze. I'm outsourcing a lot of other stuff. You know, changing software now that with bank feeds coming in. So, you know, I'm not processing payments anymore. So yeah, it's just made my life so much easier.
Now, one of the questions. Sorry, Paul.
I was just saying it's getting easier all the time, even with more coming in. The more I'm outsourcing, things are just becoming easier and easier. I'm actually finishing work around 7 o'clock now in the evening. Wow. Incredible, because it used to be like 1 o'clock in the morning. So
not good. Now, I know a lot of people are struggling with things like client accounts and things like that. So an obvious one to outsource is the client accounting. That's something that you can get different organizations to do. There are solutions for that. Inventories, like you say, you can even get your viewings done for you now. I mean, there's so many different things you can outsource, and really it allows you to focus on growing and building the business. In those early days, that's really important. But I know what the objection people are going to say. They're going to say, I can't afford to outsource. And what would you say to that, Kate? What would your answer be to that? I can't afford to outsource. It costs me £40. It's cheaper if I do it myself.
The thing is, you've got to look at what you're doing with your time. Is if you can't make £40 doing some sort of lead generation or gathering new business, then really I would start to question about whether this really is for you anyway. Because if you're going to spend inventories, as Paul said, take bloody hours. They are the bane of life, sort of thing. You know, so what could you be doing for 3 or 4 hours in a day where you would be, you know, doing an inventory in a property, that kind of thing. So, you know, if you had outsourced that and it cost you 40 quid, would you be able to generate 3 or 4 new leads? As Paul says, run some sort of video campaign, get another 100, 150 people on your database, talk to one fully managed client to convert them, let only client, convert them to fully managed? You've made your money back. The problem is that in lettings, people start being busy fools, and you've got to make sure that all of the jobs and tasks that you're doing as a sole startup business owner is revenue generating. Otherwise, you are not going to get off the ground. Absolutely not. So what would I say? You can't afford to? Well, you cannot afford not to.
I can always remember a conversation I had with one of my first franchisees, and she was a really, really attention to detail person. And she went on this inventory. It was a massive house, fully furnished. And it took her 7 hours to do this inventory. And I was just like, what could you have done in those 7 hours? She was like, I'm not spending £40. I'm like, my God, in 7 hours, think how many prospecting you could have done, how many lets you could have generated, how much new business you could have done, marketing you could have done, blogs you could have written, videos you could have made, any of those things. But it took a bit of a mindset shift to do that. So well done, Paul, for actually getting through that barrier, because that is one of the common barriers of people in your position is like, well, I can't afford it, so I'm going to hold on to the money. But it's a false economy. And have you noticed a difference since you've adopted that mindset in outsourcing and finding people to do different things for you?
Oh, massively. Yeah, it's just, like I say, it's given me more time for myself and in the business as well. You know, I'm looking at everything else. What else can I outsource? You know?
I think it's great what Paul said as well, that actually he's growing and scaling up, you know, to a level that you want and that's comfortable to you, but you're getting busier, you're getting bigger, and yet you're finding things easier. I mean, that's a real key thing here, because people often think, oh my God, if I take on more, or if I try and grow too quickly, or if I do more, it's going to be even worse, and I'm going to be busier and it's going to be harder. Whereas actually, if you do this the right way, as Paul says, it gets easier. So you're making more money, spending less time, and it's easier. I mean, it's just great. Well done. Yeah.
So the first 3 things we've shared with you here about starting a letting agency, getting to your first 100 properties is, number 1, have a plan before you start. You know, think about how you can really build that database, whether that be just content sharing, running a webinar, and going into groups like Paul said here, anything like that to build that database. We'll talk a little bit more about that database in a minute. Secondly, we talked about acquisitions. We talked about acquiring the portfolios so that you could actually start with 50 properties under management, or 40 properties, or 100 properties under management, whatever the case may may be. There's loads of strategies you can use around acquisitions where it won't actually cost you anything. You actually use the money in the deal to actually pay for the acquisition, so you don't need cash up front. So just bear that one in mind. We'll talk a bit more about that later as well. And then finally, and the third one we talked about, not finally, but the third thing we talked about, we have a few more to cover with you, but the third thing we talked about was outsourcing. And I think in this early phase of getting up to 100 properties, we can become really, really busy fools. And, you know, there's so much to do. And what, in my experience, what tends to happen, it's like with marketing, loads of landlords, get loads of landlords, and then we slow down because we've got landlords that we need to let now, and we need to manage them, and there's leaky taps, and there's boilers breaking down. And then when it gets a bit more marketing, no, I haven't got time for that, need to get some more let's, need to do more, a bit more marketing, no more time for that. And of course, it all grinds to a halt and it stands still, and then the business doesn't grow. And that's wise, because you're not got enough time to focus on marketing, lead generation, and generating those sales and those leads. And I've just seen this so many times. Paul, would you agree? Is that what you found? Is that where you got to?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's fascinating, isn't it? We all go through the same. I mean, literally, we've spoken to thousands of agents, and they've all been through this. You know, they've all got to that sticking point. I mean, there's many, as we've said, there's many different barriers. There's 100, there's 250, there's different layers where people just get stuck. But that's just the first one. And so many give up, and it's such a shame, because there's things that you can really, really do to get past that. So
I think what happens, Sally, is that at this stage of the startups, you know, we're one-man band kind of people that we're talking to here at this stage, is that they've usually come into this industry because they wanted, they were landlords, and they wanted, you know, better service, or they thought they could give better service and that kind of thing. So they come into this, you know, thinking they're going to set up the letting agent that they would want if they were renting out their properties. And that we know that that comes with an awful lot of work. And I'm not saying people need to sacrifice on service, but you've got to be ready to have the time and energies to be able to do that. And as a business owner, you've got so many different hats you've got to wear. You know, as Sally said, you're making the tea, you're doing the accounts, and you're doing the marketing, you're doing the letting, you're doing the maintenance and everything like that. That as you try and get busier and you get more and more leads on, the more properties let, the more work you've got, the better, you know, the more customer service that's needed to be done. So one area gets neglected while you're focusing on another. And that's why sort of doing, you know, outsourcing correctly very early on will stop that from happening, because the people you've already got on will be looked after, and that won't suffer, but you'll also be able to work on the front end and keep pushing new business in. So it's just looking at, remember that it's a business you're starting here, and it's a business you're running here, and it's got to work for both sides.
Absolutely. And the next thing to think about is, once you've started to generate leads and people are reaching out to you, and you're creating these groups, and you've got these people on Facebook that you're connected with, there's many things you can do once you've started to build your connections. And one of the things that you can actually do is actually start to reach out to them. Now, Kate, I'm going to come over to you. You talked about messenger chat. So this is a new thing that a lot of people are using. It's called, one of the things, it's called conversion conversations. And there's a whole technique around this. Like, I don't know whether you've been doing this, Paul, so I'm out on a limb here. You may or may not. So this might be something you could try yourself. But I don't know if you'll notice, a lot of people are reaching out on Messenger now and chatting to you. And in the marketing world, the messenger chat gets a better result than email, text messages, letter, than anything else you can do. So Kate, how would we do that? We've got ourselves a nice big group. We've got loads of landlords in there that we're talking to. How do we reach out to them?
I think, you know, it's just taking the communication slightly more personally, which is why I think it works. You know, we've all been locked in, and we've been spoken to by Zoom and webinar, and we've all had emails, and we've all had, you know, all of those kind of things. It's just making that slightly more personal. And if you're Paul's got these amazing groups with, you know, 6,000-7,000 people in there, fantastic. And I'm sure you're in there and commenting and that kind of thing. But you can just take it a step further. So a lot of people are then, you know, recognizing something in a group, or seeing someone's got a particular struggle or a pain, you just jump on a messenger chat with them and go, hi, how are you doing? I see that you're talking about this, or did you know that we do this? And just taking it that little bit step further, so that it's a real personal connection. And what's working quite nicely across all industries, actually, not just ours, is that it is the business owner behind those messages. It's not messenger bot anymore. You know, rather than spending your day on emails or on phone calls and stuff like that, it just feels a bit like cheating, doesn't it, really? Because you're sort of at work, or, you know, on Messenger, that kind of thing. But it's really, really working. People are enjoying the personal personalization of that. It comes across nicely. It sometimes can be a little bit less offensive than in a group, where sometimes people are a bit odd about airing their issues or their problems, that kind of thing. You can get a lot more personal. And we're finding that people will look at their messenger a lot more than just a marketing text or an email. It doesn't get lost in the fodder quite so much. So, you know, nurturing those groups is great. You can take it even a step further and start working on conversion messages. And there's, you know, some real great techniques and things like that out there, and ways that works and all that sort of thing. But it's definitely up and coming, I would say, for now. Absolutely.
Great one. Just if you've got someone in your group, a landlord in your group, and he's just bought a property, just message them and say, congratulations on your latest property. Looks a cracking buy there. Can I just ask where you found it? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. Open the conversation, and then you nurture the conversation round into a conversion. So as I say, some really, really cool techniques there. So that would be my point number 4. Point number 5 for me would be to make sure that you own the data. Make sure that you build a database. I know this isn't true to your heart, Paul, is really just gathering data and building that database. Because remember that when database is on, it's on Facebook, you don't own that data, so they can switch you off, turn you off, all that sort of stuff. So make sure you've got a mechanism to convert your leads, contacts, whatever, to actually be on your database rather than just being on Facebook. And that's something that will really, really help you moving forward. Paul, is that something you're working on at the moment more so?
Yeah, I mean, I have done a little bit of that in the past, but again, it's one of those things that you kind of drop off. But yeah, no, that sounds great. It's just simplicity, isn't it? Really, you're there. Facebook is huge for us, so it's there in front of me anyway. So yeah, sounds great.
Just a simple mechanisms, you know, download this free guide. I've created this checklist. You know, it could be evaluation tool. It could be, you know, opted into your webinar. It could be anything like that. These are all ways to get people onto your database. And what you're building there is an asset. I mean, we've all noticed we go into, well, when we used to be able to go in shops anyway, when we used to be able to go in shops, they'd say, can I email you the receipt? And I'd be going, no, just give me a bit of paper. But they want to email you the receipt because they want a data capture. And that's what it's about. It's about building that database so that you own that database. And, you know, you should be able to collect as a letting agent somewhere between 250, 500. Our Wolverhampton branch is getting about 650 a month. So it's new people onto your database all the time that are landlords that are specifically interested in your thing. And those are people to talk to, which is going to bring me to point number 5, I think, which is nurture. Over to you, Kate, nurturing that database.
Yeah, so nurturing the database is really important, and you know, this can be done in all sorts of ways. I mean, we talked about little messages, we've talked about inviting them to something, where this might maybe a landlord seminar or a webinar, putting out useful videos, as Paul talked about, with, you know, legislation changes, or helping people out with information, or, you know, going live for a Q&A on something like StreamYard. I mean, we're all doing it already, guys. You can be doing it yourself. You know, talking to them about, you know, so I'm not talking about just sending sort of a faceless newsletter every month, because quite frankly, I know I get hundreds of things like that and they just get deleted. So you've got to nurture in a way that people want to hear. You've got to give them useful information. You've got to show yourself as an authority in the field that you're talking about. But there's so many ways that you can talk to people. But as Sally quite rightly says, you've got to build that network first. Otherwise, who are you going to talk to, right? So continuous nurture is really, really important. Don't let them forget who you are, but also don't send nonsense. So be useful, be helpful.
But also as well, great chat there, Kate, and absolutely spot on. Nurture them and learn new ways to convert. Now, one of the bugbears for me in this industry is that we teach our negotiators to, you want a free valuation? Would you like a free valuation? Would you like a free valuation? We even got adverts.
They're all
valuation. It's like, excuse my language, but no shit, Sherlock. Everyone does a free valuation. You know, it's not a thing. It really isn't a thing anymore. We need to have a few more techniques for converting landlords and nurturing them, as Kate was just saying. So my next point is really start to really fine tune and hone in your conversion techniques, your conversion conversations. There's conversion conversations for everything, but one of the real key ones is if you've got people on your database that have signed up for a checklist or a download or a webinar or something like that, they're more likely going to be let-only landlords. Now, this is the most untapped, ignored part of the market in the letting sector. And if you just put a property on the market, if you just allow your landlords to choose whether they want to go let only or fully managed, 50% now choose let only. That means 50% of the market that do use agents are actually being ignored by agents. Everyone's marketing for fully managed landlords. They're not marketing for let only landlords. My answer is market for let-only landlords and then learn how to convert them. Because if you can do that, you'll be 1 in 100 in your town focusing on let-only's conversion to fully managed rather than being 99 in the town focusing on the same landlords. And so many letting agents haven't done that. And it's just a conversion technique. It's just learning those communication tools that you need to have for your staff, for you, for whoever's going to be on the phones, to learn what they're interested in and how to convert them to fully managed. Because the belief of 99% of landlords is they won't take fully managed. They've always gone let only. They're never going to take fully managed. There's no point, just leave them. I say, no, let's focus on them and let's convert them. And we found that most listers convert anything between 15 and 25 a month if they focus on this. So this is a real cool technique that works really, really well. And what I love about it is it's an untapped market. I mean, would you agree with me, Paul? Is all the letting agents in your town chasing the let-only landlords, or are they focusing on the fully managed?
I don't even think they're following them. Focusing.
That's honesty right there.
Focusing on themselves. But no, I think that's right. I mean, the let-only landlords, I mean, I've converted all of mine now to fully managed. Haven't actually taken on a let-only for over a year now.
Wow. Paul, well done.
Well done, Paul. You got it licked. But you know what? So many agents would say that's impossible. So if you're just starting out now, guys, honestly, invest in some training, understand the psychology that's going on here. Paul has mastered that and he's transformed his business. And it's about understanding what the other agents are doing and doing something different. You know, focus on those fully managed. Your money, your income, your revenue and your profit will come from those fully managed landlords. So just set your stall out and say, that's what I'm going to focus on. Guys, those of you listening, is this making sense, by the way? Let us know. Is this helpful? Are we helping you get to your first 100 properties? Is this making sense? So Paul, what would you, so now, I mean, just think back, anything else you think of that perhaps you would have done differently if time could be turned back with the knowledge that you have now? Would you have focused on just fully managed? Would you have done the let only route? Would you have worked so hard? Would you have done so much for free? What would you have done differently to what you've done now?
I wouldn't have done anything for free. I've said before, I charge for absolutely everything now. My rates have gone up again. But no, I think, you know, it's a case of just keep going. And, you know, I'm going to keep pushing that for those let-only landlords, and I will convert them. That's simple.
And I think so many, touching on doing stuff for free, just coming back to that for a second. One of the challenges you have, if you can remember when you first started, Paul, one of the challenges that you have is you think you've got to be cheaper than everyone else. You look at everyone else and you think, I'm going to do the same as them. I'm going to be better than them, but I'm going to charge less. And this is almost like taking a poison chalice. It's just like you're setting the business up to fail almost from the start, but you don't believe it because you feel that's what you've got to do to get into the market. But of course, as you know, Paul, because you've been through this journey, at some point later on, you've got to make a profit, and you can't do that if you're charging less than everyone else and doing more, because you're basically doing more work than everyone else and charging less. So your profit margin is squeezed to the point where you're probably making a loss. At some point, you have to turn that around. And I know you, Paul, went on this journey. You made that decision and you went down the route of charging for everything, which is, you know, if you want to make profit, that's what you need to do. But the belief at the beginning isn't there. So is there anything that you could say to anybody that perhaps is in that place, that perhaps give them a little bit of confidence that that is what they need to do, what the future looks like if we do go cheaper than everybody else and do more than everybody else? How does it feel when you get 6 months down the line? What do they need to do?
You've got to increase fees. You've got to give the landlords the, you know, what they need, what they're looking for. You know, give them a service, better service than the rest of the agents are doing down the road. You know. Don't do things too cheaply. Outsource.
I love it. And of course, by charging more, you can outsource. And the way I see it is, I like nice service. I like to go to nice hotels. In those old days when we used to be able to do things like that, I like to go to nice hotels. I like to go to nice restaurants. I like to be served well and nice food and all those sort of things. And Kate just loves to scatter around on the world on a jet plane and all those sort of things. You know, we love those sort of things, but they're not cheap. So if you want to give the best service and you want to be the best agent, renowned for the best service, you have to charge for it. So in charging the right amount of money, you can actually give the best service. However, by charging less money, you just can't give the best service. You're just going to end up running around like a crazy person, trying to do everything and not really getting anywhere fast. And we keep seeing this, Kate, don't we? We keep seeing
I think as well as if you start out with your business and you pitch on price, you will always be judged on price. So you cannot go in there and have offers and of, that you're going in lower and undercutting and all that sort of thing, because then you will always be that agent. And that's what people will focus on. And the way that customers are looking to spend their money, and the customer journey now is so much longer than it used to be. People are not buying on price anymore. People are buying on service. We're in a really uncertain world, and this constantly changing legislation. We've now got the global pandemic. Throw that in as well. People are not so bothered about the price now. They want service. They want security. So don't pitch price. Pitch service. Much more valuable.
Absolutely. Now, over the last 18 months, I would say, particularly since last January, there has been an amazing amount of change in the world. We don't need to talk about that because the various algorithms don't like us talking about and using certain words. But there has been a massive amount of changes, and this industry has had to pivot hugely in a way like we couldn't believe, like virtual viewings and all sorts of things like that. But actually, I read a report the other day that said that the independent agent has actually come out of this last 12 months in a better position than most of the corporates. And I'm going to ask you, Paul, why do you think perhaps the independents have thrashed their way through this and come out better than the corporates? What are you seeing on the street? What do you think is the difference there?
That's a good question. I don't know really. No, we've pushed everything. We've pushed really hard to do the right thing. We find obviously people still need to move. People need properties. So, a lot of the agents in the high streets have closed. I'm still pushing on from home, so everything's running smoothly. I'm not out and about on the streets at the moment because you're not allowed to be. So I've more time here.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
I think that's a really good point. I think what Paul said there is that a lot of the larger agencies, because they were under the corporate umbrella, they had to close. They closed before they could get their company policies, risk assessments, things like that in place. And for landlords who have properties that are rented out, they weren't closed. Those have still got tenants in with needs and worries and concerns and those kind of things. And I think the independents in this industry really stepped up in the last 12 months because we were there and we were as open as we could be at any point in time. And the market has remained open, especially in the last 2 of the lockdowns, as Paul quite rightly said. People are moving. People need to move. People need to be housed. People need to be looked after in their properties. And I think we have come off as champions of that, because that's what we do as independent agents. We put ourselves out there and we help and we do the right thing. And we're not governed by, such corporate entities that perhaps, you have to jump through a few more hoops to do that. I mean, staying open, staying relevant, staying helpful has been the lifesaver, really, I think, of this industry during this time. And I think everyone should be very proud of themselves for that, definitely.
It certainly has been an interesting 12-18 months. And I'm sure, like the rest of us, you can't wait to come out the other side of this. But we're certainly going to
go for a drink, Sally.
A bottle of wine, Kate, if you like. Is that okay? But guys, I just want to let you know about a little event, Paul, we're running. It's called Agent Rainmaker Accelerator Mastery in March. And I know you're going to be coming along, so I really can't wait for that to actually happen. But those of you watching, we're actually running a 3-day event, and I'd like to give you the chance to come along for free. It's 3 days Agent Rainmaker Accelerator Mastery, where we're going to be sharing all the strategies that we have used in the last 12 months, the 3-day event for the last 12 months that we've been using to help agents grow. We've had some phenomenal results. People grow 100%, 200%, 300%. We've had one guy add £1 million in revenue to his business. We've had another guy add 250,000 in just 12 weeks to his business. We've had people just starting out that have got to 50 and to 100 properties. People have added 250k revenue to their business. And a lot of these strategies are different to what we were doing 2 to 3 years ago because the world is different. And so what we decided to do here at Agent Rainmaker is decided to put on a 3-day virtual event. Now, you know what we're like, Paul. We know we like our hypey and woo, and Kate likes her t-shirt, guns and swag and throw stuff out and gifts and competitions and raffles and all that sort of stuff. I mean, you've been to Agent Maker Live. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. We love crazy, crazy, crazy sort of events. And we can't do that now. It's really frustrating. But we're going to try, Paul. We're going to try and do it from a virtual stage in, I'm supposed to say London, but it's actually Slough. Okay, so we're going to try and do this from a virtual stage. Now, okay, maybe not the t-shirt gun, but we're going to have 3 days where we're going to share all the strategies over the last 12, 18 months we've been helping people grow. So stuff like conversion conversations, acquisition strategies, corporate governance. We're going to be talking about CEO strategies for growth, loads of stuff that perhaps we weren't teaching 2 or 3 years ago because it's all new stuff. But the stuff that's had the biggest results in the last 12 to 18 months. And we're just putting it out there and you have a chance to attend that absolutely for free because we want to help the industry just get better and grow bigger. And I think, partly the reason we've done so well in the last 12 months is because as small agents, we can pivot and we can do so fast because we haven't got those layers. So we're running an ARX Mastery event. The link's going to be shared somewhere in the chat underneath if you're watching this. Just click on it and come and have a look. You can attend absolutely for free. You don't charge you a single penny unless you love it. And then if you love it, then you will pay a small amount after the event. And that just covers our costs. We only want to cover our costs in this event. It's not a pitch fest thing. It's a 3-day event where we're sharing loads of strategies so that we can serve the community. And Paul, you've been to our events before. What are they like?
They are incredible. Incredible. Such a buzz.
It is. And that's what we love. When we're going to have breakout rooms, there's going to be networking opportunities. There's going to be, we're going to be free gifts going to be given away all the way through the event. There's going to be raffles, going to be prizes. There's going to be, honestly, it's going to be absolutely mental. You even get a bottle of champagne. If you're one of the first 100 people to book a VIP ticket, you actually get a bottle of champagne. We're going to have we're going to try a champagne evening, Paul. We're going to try it. We're going to have a champagne.
Black tie, please, guys.
Yeah, you're going to sit there in your lounge in black tie with a bottle of champers. Honestly, we'd love it because at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm just so desperate to see people and do something and just have that community. So we just have a almost out of lockdown party. And this is going to be it. So it's ARX Mastery, 3 days, absolute full on. There will not be a t-shirt gun, although Kate is licensed to hold one.
I think I might get one anyway and just do it in the studio. What do we think?
We did actually think about actually having this t-shirt gun because you've got all these screens with all the people on Zoom of actually shooting. But then we thought the studio owner might not like us shooting his screens. But anyway, we did think about it, but we're not going to do that anyway. So guys, anyway, click the link, have a look at ARX Mastery. Come and check us out. Really hope you can attend to be great. So we're going to be sharing a lot of the stuff we're talking about here. And over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be sharing all the different sections of agency growth barriers. So as I said, the first one is getting to your first 100 properties. That is the first barrier. And then we're going to be taking you through the next 8 stages. So twice per week. That's Wednesday and Friday every week at 4 o'clock. Wherever you're watching this, we will be here and we will be talking and sharing how you can smash through those barriers. But Paul, do you think we've helped people here get to that first 100 properties?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I'd be lost without you guys, honestly.
Oh.
It's incredible. These live events especially were just well, I've got no words for it really. They saved my life. I've said it before. I think it's been absolutely incredible. So attend every single one.
Well, absolutely. We're here to serve. We're here to help. I mean, to get 3 days of coaching for free is like ridiculous. But hey, what else have we got to do? We're only going to be watching another series of rubbish on Netflix that I've ran out now. There's nothing else to watch. So we just thought, what the hell? Let's do it. Let's get out of there. So guys, I hope you'll see us there. Paul, you have been amazing. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your story. Because I do know so many people now are in that phase and perhaps thinking of getting out. And I hope with you being here today, perhaps we've inspired a few people to not get out and to stay in and to make a change and to give them the motivation, the boost to do something and to just make it happen. And that would be worthwhile then, wouldn't it?
And Sally, if any of those people who are thinking about getting out, if they want to message me privately on Facebook, I'm happy to have a chat with them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul. And please do that. Paul's a great guy. He's happy to help anybody. My mindset is don't do it. Just get some training, get some coaching, get some mindset, get some motivation, talk to the right people. The answers are there. You can do this. So there we are, the end of our first episode of Smashing Through the Agency Growth Barriers, how to get your first 100 properties, with special guest Paul Kitten. Thank you so much. You are a superstar and a living legend amongst Agent Rainmaker. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Thank you, Kate, also as well. And guys, put it in your diary, 4 p.m. on Friday. We will be here for stage 2 of Smashing Through the Agency Growth Barriers, how to get past that 200 properties. All right, so we will see you here on Friday. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.